try again. It's good. Danny Green.
The offensive rebound. And clear some space on the
What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Pick Swap Podcast. My name is Sean Barnard, and I am here with James Birrane. As always, the Philly season has left us in heartbreak, so we have shifted our focus to the team that can only hurt us worse, that being the Philadelphia 76ers. So, James, how are we feeling after that letdown with the Phillies last night, and how's your outlook? Are you into basketball mode yet?
Yeah, I was joking with some people today. The speed in which I pivot to the next thing that is inevitably going to end poorly, it should be studied. I woke up today ready to go. I mean, obviously disappointing Phil's end, but it happens. All the teams have kind of done this to us, so we might as well just take it in stride and go on to the next. So I'm ready to go.
I will say, like, the slow, painful death that was Game 7 of the Phillies, it was brutal, man. Like, even like the Sixers meltdowns that we've lived through several at this point, it felt like there was such like a angry inflection point of things. For the Phillies, it was just like hopeless. Like, there was just no movement, and it honestly might have stung even worse, just sitting there having no hope for the length of the game. So yeah, not a good experience at all. Go ahead.
No, dude. I mean, I think the problem with the Phils, like the way, and we can completely end it after this. I think the problem was, like, I had felt that from the Eagles recently.
Mhm.
I had felt that from the Sixers recently and over the last, half decade. I didn't expect it from them. Like, I didn't
Right.
expect them to go out that way. So I think that's why it hurt, because I trusted them to show up. And there were some unfortunate things like Harper's at bats, and not to go into it, but it sucks to feel that way about them because I haven't really felt that way about them in a really long time.
Yeah, they're exactly who we thought we weren't, which stings swallowing that.
Yeah.
But we will shift gears and shift away from the Phillies, take a look at the Sixers. The NBA season has now arrived. That I did flip right over from that Phillies game and watch that Warriors versus Suns game, just kind of in a just zone watching, just lifeless, seeing basketball before my eyes. So at least there is something to look forward to. But I do want to lay out the preseason expectation for the Sixers, touch on a little bit of the team expectations, the season long over under, the prediction for how things will go, and of course the James Harden situation, which is stirring up and kicking up. So I want to start things off with that, which is kind of the looming cloud that is hanging over this Sixers organization. So to give a brief recap of the James Harden situation as it currently has stand. So we know that he stepped away from the Sixers facility, that he decided not to participate in training camp and practice with the team. He's been out for 10 days away from the organization. As of this morning, that James Harden elected to return to the team, and then apparently was of the mindset that he would be joining the team on the team flight. It sounds like in both cases, both in James Harden leaving the Sixers and returning to the Sixers, there was no previous communication with knowledge that he would be leaving or going. He just kind of did it, but he showed up to the organization today with plans to hop on the team plane to Milwaukee. The Sixers said, no, you need to go through your ramp-up process, and you'll be remaining here doing practice with the two-way guys and the Delaware Bluecoats until you have your return to action plan. So, James, any thoughts on this kind of, I guess, newfound situation and overall, what are your thoughts from there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's that much to make of it, to be completely honest. Like, it kind of just is what it is.
Yeah.
He did that. It happened. I know there was some speculation with what the matter was, where, wherever he ended off to. I know he went to Houston, and
Right.
It was nice to hear that Nick Nurse checked in on him. Really said it wasn't much about basketball. It was more about just checking in to see if he was okay. And obviously, a lot of, people had their guesses on what might have happened, but he left. He came back. I don't dislike the fact that they said you got to stay here and take care of your business. I think that they, at this point, were completely prepared to leave and not have Harden. So it's better for them to not let him throw a wrench in that plan, because it was already established and they already know what they're going to be doing once they get there. So the fact that he showed up is, I guess, good, and for a long-term idea of it. But for now, it kind of just is what it is until he is willing to get through his things and get back on the court and participate fully. We really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'll speak on kind of the rumors for what he was doing because I will shout out Scoop B, who was the only reporter that I've seen officially put a name on it that James Harden is dealing with his ill mother. I'll start by saying I don't want to speculate on what an illness is, and I've seen a lot of rumors flying around. I don't think it's fair to speculate on that type of personal stuff. And I'll also say I would much rather hear this from James Harden or James Harden's camp specifically, that if that is the issue that he is dealing with, I would prefer for that to be put on the table. Obviously, you got to respect the guy's personal life and private side, but I do think that's relevant in the construct of all these things. That it's a very different situation if James Harden is just stepping away from these Sixers because he's pissed off over not being traded, or if he's stepping away to care for his ill mothers. In my mind, that's a very different situation for how this should be handled from here. So if that is the case, and again, Scoop B did report this, so I have seen a reporter with a name on it at this point, and that is the case, it does change things a little bit in my mind. I don't want to be the heartless cynic here, but I will say this feels a little bit like the Ben Simmons situation where mental health was like the third excuse that he ended up throwing out. That yes, if that is particularly what he was dealing with and the whole issue in its entirety, that's obviously a very serious thing, and the situation would be handled differently if that was come with clarity from the start. But to compare this directly to the James Harden situation, I can speak for a fact that nobody within the organization knew why he left initially, and all these guys were left out to dry and face the media being asked, "Where's James Harden? What's he doing?" And they all basically had to play the old, "Oh wow, like he wasn't here today. I didn't even realize. Like that's crazy. What the heck?" So if that was the situation, it definitely could have been handled better in James Harden's situation by telling the organization directly what is going on and have some sort of statement prepared, have some sort of staple answer for these guys to give. That is not how things went down, and now we're kind of spiraling from that. But I do agree with your overarching point of it kind of is what it is, that we know all the details behind the situation. We know the goals of both sides of these, and we're going to continue to have this staring contest. There was now a recent report from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN saying that the Clippers have put a pause on their trade talks and that they will not be entertaining this for the beginning part of the season. Does that change anything from your point of view, James, that the Clippers are the lone team that seems to be doing this trade dance with the Sixers, is hitting that pause button? How does that change things in your mind?
I think the major thing that I'm kind of digesting at this point is that it's going to be a little bit until this is resolved. I think
Yeah.
there was like at least some sort of hope at some point, whether it was during the summer or early this fall, early training camp when he showed up, that, hey, maybe this is going to go down pretty soon. I even saw people making jokes of Terrence Mann being out last night.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was going to be linked
Starter
to
Terrence
something.
Mann.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not to even get there, but really, I think what we should all be understanding now is this is going to be a little bit. And I think Maury's going to hope it gets to the point where other teams start to wonder, hey, could we benefit from having James Harden? And he's got to hope that either that happens soon or the Clippers also believe that that may end up happening and they end up upping their offer, making some sort of additional um, throw in for this trade, or Harden shows up, plays, realizes that this is going to take a little bit and he can speed up the process by playing. Maybe he ends up doing that. He ends up looking good. Teams end up giving more calls. I think that those are like really the only two realistic outcomes at this point. He either plays and helps speed it up, or he doesn't, and this drags out for a long time. It could still drag out anyway, but I do think that if he stepped on the court, showed that he was willing to play, looked good, things might move a little bit faster because he had a very good season last year, and
Yeah.
people are going to forget that pretty quickly. He was a good basketball player last year. He should have been an all-star, if we're being honest. Those guys get traded for. So if he shows up and
Yeah.
is that guy, he'll get traded for.
Yeah, and there was the quote by Doc Rivers, who, by the way, just a quick side note, is the first game that Doc Rivers is on the mic for a Sixers game. There is going to be sound bites flying all over the place of the little digs and comments that he makes there. But Doc Rivers went on the Dan Patrick show and made a comment saying that he believed James Harden's mentality shifted when he was not an all-star last year, that he asked Doc to play with the second team more. He wanted to attack the stats. Now, when you compare these statistically, it's pretty much the exact same thing in the first half of the year to the second half of the year. And I will say, purely from watching, I absolutely did not notice a change in James Harden after the All-Star break. I saw nothing of that sort. But if that's what Doc believes and he wants to use that as his, deflection here, so be it. I do think it's interesting that he's going to kind of, I feel like somehow, some way, Doc Rivers is going to make this situation worse just by like having his comments and being around somehow. Like, just go golf, man. Get away from the basketball scene. Go do your thing. Don't have any part of this Sixers organization anymore, because there's no way that he can help the situation with this James Harden thing. I want to ask you one more question on it, James, and then we'll shift away and talk about the actual Sixers and the basketball being played from here. But what is your ultimate prediction for this James Harden? What is the conclusion to this? I know you said you believe it's going to drag out a little bit. The Clippers team seems to be the only team that's still nibbling at a potential trade. Do you think this drags on all the way to the All-Star break, beyond? Is this a whole season thing? How do you see this being resolved?
No, I think they get a month, 6 weeks into the season, reevaluate where they are. I think teams can kind of like get to that first checkpoint where they decide, hey, it's either time to let's make a move, let's get after it, let's go the other direction. There's like an earlier buying and selling point than the trade deadline. I don't think it gets to the trade deadline. I really hope it doesn't. I think that there's a good chance that he comes in, he plays, he is himself or some version of himself. And whether it's a direct deal to the Clippers or a 3-team deal, I don't think the Sixers hold on to the picks that they absorb in a trade. And this becomes either like a 2-day version of a trade or a 3-team deal that happens kind of over the process of a couple of days. And the Sixers end up with somebody in that tier, either alongside James or right below. And that's where, I think that that's best case scenario. But I don't think it happens before like December, mid-December.
Yeah, I think that's all pretty fair. And yeah, buckle up, people. We are in this for the long haul, unfortunately, is kind of how I would say. But I do want to shift over. Let's talk a little bit about these Sixers as a whole. I want to begin by pulling up just the Sixers roster as a whole. It is now set in stone. The decision was made to release Montrezl Harrell as that final roster spot, which essentially sets in stone that both Danny Green and Filip Petrusev, Philip with an F, will both be on the Sixers 15-man roster. Let's take a look at the roster as a whole, this courtesy of Sixers Daily here. So I just want to break this down for you. Let me make this a little bit bigger here. But to go through it, we got Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, DeAnthony Melton, PJ Tucker, Kelly Oubre Jr., Paul Reed, Patrick Beverley, Daniel House Jr., Danny Green, James Harden, Jaden Springer, Mo Bamba, Philip with an F, Petrusev, and Furkan Korkmaz. That's a pretty good squad, James. What's your initial thoughts kind of looking at this as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for a bit. I'm very excited about what this season could look like. I know that it starts out in a disappointing way with the way Harden's situation has played out this year. But with obviously top of the line talent and Embiid and Maxey, you obviously see what Maxey can do and hope he takes a step this season, which I think we're all expecting him to elevate himself to like mid 20 point per game scorer. Tobias is who he is, but DeAnthony Melton has looked really good. You assume he's going to step into that starting position, and that dynamic backcourt of Maxey and Melton has been really exciting. And then I think in terms of depth, this is as deep as this team has been since we've been a contender, if you view it that way. And obviously the Harden situation is going to play out one way or another, but even without him at this point, they're not only going to like float. I think that they're going to be a solid team. They're going to have some growing pains, obviously, but a lot of guys that can play, a lot of guys that are hungry to play, make a difference. And however the Harden situation plays out, I think it will benefit the team one way or another. And I think that's the only mission that Morey has at this point. And, maybe it takes a little bit longer to happen, but I do think it's for the right reason. So I'm excited. I don't know if I should be like this excited, but I do feel like they look better than I thought they would at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm 100% in on Nick Nurse and the things that he is doing to this franchise and this team. The movement looks different. The style looks different. It feels like we're watching modern basketball again. Like I've been I'm way more juiced up after the preseason than I expected to be at this point in time. That I'm liking what I'm seeing on the court, and I'm excited to see this translate in a more legitimate way in the regular season. And quick shout out to DeAnthony Melton, who I think is kind of climbing the list of perennially underrated players. I believe that he's a very good basketball player, man. His finishing has looked better in preseason. He's got the athleticism. His hands are everywhere defensively. I think he's going to take another stride forward this year. And by the way, he's still 24 years old. That's crazy. Yeah. Like this guy is not at his peak as a player, we would hope. So I'm excited by that. D-Melt is a guy that I am buying the stock in, but I do want to approach this as a team-wide conversation. So I want to begin by hitting you with this. The Sixers team over-under for the year is set at 48.5 wins. James, I'll start with you. Do you think the Sixers go over or under that number?
Naturally, I'm just going to say over. I think it's probably close. It depends on how long the Harden thing drags out. But I think that they're in that range, that 50-win range.
Yeah, They won 54 games last year. The Harden thing is obviously the huge asterisk on all this, but I still think they go over it. I think even amid all this Harden drama, the Sixers are absolutely the third best team in the Eastern Conference. That I acknowledge both the Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks are a slight notch above them, or maybe more than slight, a notable notch above them in kind of the tiering of these contenders. But I don't see anybody still competing with these Sixers. I think people underrate what a floor-raising player Joel Embiid is. That I just don't believe that he can be on a team that isn't a above 500 team, and that he's capable, pretty much regardless of who is on the court next to him, of elevating those guys to borderline contention. I do believe he's that good as a player, and I think that gets forgotten in the long run. So I'm still taking that over. I still think it's pretty likely that they're a 50-win team this year, even amid all the Harden stuff. And even if Harden never suits up for a game and there is no trade, I still think they can hit that I think there's enough deep talent there. So I am optimistic about that. I'm going to hit you with a couple players here for expectations. And I'll start out with the big fella himself, Joel Embiid, coming off the second consecutive season in which he's led the NBA in scoring, averaged 30.1 points per game last year. I'm going to set the over-under for points for Joel Embiid at 30.1. Do you think he goes over or under that number?
I think he goes under, and I think it's intentional that he goes under.
Yeah.
I think that I think naturally what their plan is to do is to take some off his plate, and it's not because he can't do it. Obviously, he's done it 2 years in a row, and if it came down to it, he probably will have games where he takes over offensively again. I don't doubt that at all, but I think naturally this season they want to get more people involved. There's more players off the bench that will get involved. His numbers will go down just based off of the amount of people that are scoring. So I think that it's under, but I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, totally agree all around. And I do think it's important in the evolution of Joel Embiid that he now has this under his belt of knowledge of when I'm all the way on, I'm the best player in the entire world, that I can score better than anyone. I can score at a higher level and in more versatile ways than any other player on the planet. The fact that he knows that now and that we have seen this now is valuable, I believe, moving forward. So yes, he has to grow in the areas of elevating his teammates, of playing more team-oriented basketball, or in a way that converts to winning in the same kind of team construct. But I do think that this is like an important notch on, I guess, the book of Joel Embiid. These are important chapters that he was now this MVP, that we saw this. And now that I'm over it, now that the playoffs have settled, everything is over. Like we should not be embarrassed about anything. He was MVP last year. Say it with your chest. He earned that. Yeah. And he was that for the length of the regular season. So I do think that's important.
I have a take. Hold on.
Go ahead.
He'll have multiple triple doubles this year.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Multiple triple doubles. And I'm saying somewhere between 2 and 4.
2 and 4. Okay. I like that. He does have 2 in his career thus far. So he has done it twice before. And I will kind of on that same topic, I'll throw the assist number for Joel Embiid at you. I'm setting that at 5.1. Do you think he goes over or under that?
I think he goes over. And I think, again, it's intentional. I think he's probably mid 5, like 5.5. What was he at last year? 4.5?
4.2. He's bet 4.2 the past 2 seasons.
So I think it goes up. I think it's going to be fairly over 5. 5.6 is my guess.
Okay. I like that. I think that's about right. I think 5.6 is around the ballpark. I totally agree. I think this is absolutely going to be a career high in assists for him. They're doing a lot more DHOs and dribble handoffs in the two-man games, which essentially turn into free assists for the big man. A lot of times that has been the Nikola Jokic hack for several seasons now. And while Jokic is a high-level playmaker who does make some crazy passes, a lot of his numbers get juiced off on these simple handoffs, or that he kind of just gives to Jamal Murray and allows him to shoot a jumper, and it works out. So I would like to see Embiid and Maxey do something similar. I want to see that two-man game take a stride forward this year, because I just believe there's so much more to unlock. But as a whole, I do agree. I think this is going to be the playmaking year for Joel Embiid. I think 5.6 is a pretty spot-on number. So I'll also go with the over. I would love to see triple-double Joel Embiid. I think he's invested in growing in those areas. So we will see how it turns out with that. I'll shift gears and bring up the next guy that I did just mention here, which is Tyrese Maxey. A lot of pressure on him. The Harden thing also is very impactful to what statistically I believe he will have on his plate this year. But I'm going to ask you about Tyrese Maxey points, and I'm going to set the over at 25.1. Do you think that goes over or under? And for the record, he averaged 20.3 last year.
I think it's under, but not by much.
Okay.
I want to say like just under 25. Like I think that is like a very fair line. I'm going to guess like 24.8 would be like what my guess would be. But and again, that's 0.3 off, so it could be anything in that range. But for the sake of it, I'll take the under.
Okay, I'm going over with that. I think we could see a 26 or 27 point per game season from Tyrese Maxey. I really believe that he could take that much of a stride forward as a scorer. I think this has little to do with his development and much more to do about the opportunity. That I think in reality, I don't see James Harden really playing much of a role with this team. And I think there's a real chance that if he does show up and want to play and is not playing at the level or trying or giving the effort level that is desired, he's going to be right back on the pine, and it's going to be Tyrese Maxey with the responsibilities. And I also think Maxey's going to become the guy that when Joel Embiid has his knocks and misses games, it's going to be the Tyrese Maxey show. And I think we're going to see games
100%.
where he's putting up 40-plus points, and we see those numbers inflated as a result of that. So I'm in on the Tyrese Maxey points this year. I would take that at just about any line that you can find it on a sports book. By the way, these lines I'm purely coming up with off my head, so I'm kind of just riffing off the top here. These aren't ones that you can bet on a particular platform, but I will shift gears to the next one. I'm curious your response on this one. Tobias Harris is very much a mystery man for me in this offense. Tobias Harris over or under 15.5 points per game. James, what do you think?
Over.
Okay.
He's going to score 16.7.
I
don't know, man. He's going to be – I think I'm going to take the over again. I think that these lines are like pretty spot on. I think that you're right around where that number will be. But I think like he's going to be himself, and consistently he's in that, at least in that range. I'd hope that there's some sort of freedom for him. I don't know. Hopefully on cuts, like there's got to be something additional for him in this offense. Like Nick Nurse has to have had some sort of idea of how to maneuver his flaws, especially with a high motion offense. He's always been a good cutter. It's just really about him finishing. Hopefully they can get out on the break. Like Tobias at one point in time was like a very good fast break player, surprisingly. Obviously with the help of Ben getting out at the point in time. But they're trying to move up and down the floor a lot quicker. Like there should be some spots for him to kind of like scoop up an extra 4, 6, 8 points per game just on like getting out on the break and cutting when Joel is doubled. And like hopefully they can just make that happen and make him kind of a, at least feasible product in this offense. I think that he's built for that at least. You gotta hope, right?
Yeah, I'm optimistically taking the over as well. I really have no clue what I expect from Tobias Harris this year. That I don't buy into the resurgence of Tobias Harris. I don't know what to make of him. I just, and this has been my issue with Tobias throughout his Sixers tenure, is what is the defining basketball skill that keeps Tobias Harris on the court? And I still struggle to answer that question of, he's very good at a lot of things. He's not elite at anything in particular. And that's a tough spot when you're in the NBA. That pretty much everyone around the NBA has that one skill that they can hang their hat on, that whether it be like the speed of Tyrese Maxey that no one else can match, whether it be the shooting ability of players or the defensive ability of players. There isn't that one thing that I see in Tobias Harris that makes me say I need to have him on the court. I do think Nick Nurse seems to genuinely like Tobias Harris, that there is some sort of relationship there, or he's making an effort to at least play to Harris's strengths or give him his opportunities to succeed. I just don't really know if I've fully seen it, and I don't know what to make. I would say as I look down this roster, like I have some really high hopes for the guys like Maxey. I have a vision for what Paul Reed's role would be. I don't know what to make of Tobias Harris, and I probably have the least idea of what I see his role is. So I am intrigued to see what that exactly looks like to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's hard to imagine him doing any more than he's been doing, but I do think that some like the way that Nurse has to look at this is he's had good seasons, he's had effective seasons where he's really efficient and his opportunities are numbered. There's less of a chance for him to do the things that he does that are frustrating, and he's given those opportunities in more optimizing spots. Nick Nurse is a smart guy. He's like, this offense is going to look a lot different. You just hope that with Tobias being who he is, but then also being able to capitalize on some situations that favor him a little bit more, rather than just like the random post up with 8 seconds left in the shot clock.
It's his go-to.
It's his go. I mean, and it's going to happen. And, sometimes you just got to laugh and just say, that's Tobias, man. That's what he do. At some point he's going to not be around and you're like, damn, dude, I kind of wish I saw a Tobias post up right now.
I don't know if I'm ever going to feel that, James. I don't know if I'm ever going to
I'm
feel
gonna make a
that.
T-shirt with that on, man. I'm gonna miss a Tobias post that when it's gone.
I've never seen a man like a tough contested two more than Tobias Harris. But you know what?
Gotta
You do you.
respect it.
Yeah, gotta respect it. You do you, Toby. I'll move on to the next one here. Paul Reed over or under 22 and a half minutes per game.
Huh. I think he's over that. I think he's
Okay.
over that for sure. I think with him playing next to Embiid, which I think they're gonna do like a fair amount later in the season, I think that might be something they grow into a little bit more. But I think that there's a fair chance that he's not only playing like backup center, he's also like the third rotational four. So, I don't know where you line those up necessarily, but he's going to be in that mix, I think, for wings. I think that Nurse he's fond of that style of player as we've
Yeah.
seen. I think that there's a chance that he sees like Paul Reed having good games and getting in flows and being like, I want him on the floor, even if Joel is there. And I think they want to use Joel more as a wing at times as well, too. So maybe there's a lot of opportunity there with the two of them. So I think maybe like it doesn't start out at that point, but I think later in the year it could get, closer to 24, 25.
Wow. All right. I hope you're right.
Couple
I think
extra
I'm
minutes.
unfortunately going under on this one. For what it's worth, Paul Reed averaged 10.9 minutes per game last year. We know the Doc Rivers experience with that. For what it's worth, Shake Milton averaged 20.6 minutes per game last year. DeAnthony Melton 27.9, PJ Tucker 25.6. So I do feel like 22 and a half is a lot.
Yeah.
These minutes across the board are going to look very different with Nick Nurse versus Doc Rivers. So it's tough to give an eye for eye comparison there, but just for the point of reference, I'm not as like sure-handed in what I see Paul Reed's role either, as I do agree there's going to be a mix between the playing center, playing the four. I'm excited for the power forward Paul Reed experience. I also think that the small ball is going to be an option under Nick Nurse as well. That I do see PJ Tucker getting at least some center minutes this year, and don't overlook the Mo Bamba and Philip Petrusev opportunity. And as much as I'll say Mo Bamba is very much underwhelmed me, but he does have like the look and the feel of a true guy that should be able to be a big man, that he does have the nights where he has it. And Philip Petrusev, as much as I've pretty much talked shit on him since he's got to Philadelphia, like he's looked better than I've expected. And this season is by far the most complete I've seen him as a basketball player. So I don't think those guys are nothing as far as competing for minutes with Paul. And I'm really not sure what that whole rotation is going to work out with yet. I think we're going to see like two of those guys. And by those guys, meaning like Joel Embiid, Mo Bamba, Philip Petrusev, and Paul Reed on the court at a pretty regular rate.
Yeah, I would agree. So yeah, I mean that line seems fair. Like maybe it's close to that, maybe it's a little bit above or below, but I think that his role will change. I think that it's going to be flexible. He's going to have to do a lot of things, and I think on a nightly basis it might change. And I think in the past that was not an option to be anything outside of the box that he was put in by like in that rotation. I think he had a job. He knew what he had to do or what he was tasked to do, what he was supposed to do. I think in this sense, on a game by game basis or a stretch by stretch basis, I think that there's a chance that Paul is asked to do a longer list of things at times. And sometimes it's going to be a little bit different. And depending on where these guys all fall in the rotation, and there's a lot up in the air, but I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing because there's a lot of options.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll move on. I have two more over-unders I want to hit you with, and then a couple questions to wrap it up. The next one I'm going to shift over to DeAnthony Melton, and I think this is a fun one here. I'm going to go over or under combined points, rebounds, and assists, and I'm going to set that line at 23.5 for DeAnthony Melton. Now, for the
Points.
record, points, rebounds, and assists, yes. So for the record, last year he averaged 10.1 points, 4.1 rebounds, and 2.6 assists. So that number comes in right at a 17, right around 17 for that. So 23.5. How much of a leap do you see D Mount making?
That's a good question. Again, this is like a lot of this is unfortunately going to be based on what happens with Harden. But for the first
Right.
part of the season, if Harden's not in the lineup, he's going to get a chance to start and play a lot of minutes. And I think that he's a guy that he'll be the first guy off the bench, even if he's not starting.
Yeah.
He's looked incredible in the preseason. And defensively, like he's really important to this rotation as a wing, as a guy that's, in terms of height, a little bit undersized to be a wing, but wingspan and athleticism, he really matches up nicely on some wings. But I guess I'm gonna go I think I'm going to go over, but like barely over. I think it's going
Okay.
to be right around there. I think he probably bumps his points up to like 12, 13, 14, depending on the minutes. Yeah, I think everyone's a little bit more empowered to like make plays too. So passing wise, I could see his numbers like ticking up
Yeah.
a little bit at least.
Yeah, I think playmaking is the biggest leap I see him making. He hasn't showed me any sort of natural instincts as a playmaker. I won't say that, but I do think he makes the proper basketball decisions for the most part. And I do think scoring, he takes his game to another level this year. I think DeAnthony Melton is like sneaky my pick for who Nick Nurse will unlock the furthest this year. That
Mm.
I really do believe. Like, I think a lot of people are viewing DeAnthony Melton as like this seasoned veteran, and he's like, this kid still could get better. Like, he still has
Yeah.
layers to come. So I'm very intrigued by what he could be. And for the time being, that is the starting shooting guard on these Sixers. That as long as James Harden's out, it's going to be DeAnthony Melton in that lineup. So I do expect a major leap for him. So I'm going to take the over on that number. And I think I'm buying the stock in DeAnthony Melton much more than I thought I was to start the offseason. The more I've seen preseason, the more I'm just kind of talking myself into things here. So I am taking the over on this. Now, the last over under that I will hit you with, I have to bring it back to the negativity here. And I will set the line at, let's go 8.5 here. Over under games played for James Harden in a Sixers uniform, 8.5 games. What do you think, James?
I'm going to go over, and my guess would be he plays like 15 or 20.
Okay. Wow. All right.
That's where I am today, October 25th. That is what it's at, like 7:48, October 25th. Like that's my gut feeling. If you ask me this time tomorrow, I could have a completely different answer. But right now, that's just what I feel from what I've heard.
That's fair. I think I'm taking the under here, and I think it's more of I think that they are going to consciously keep James Harden from doing any internal damage. That I think that there's a very real chance he plays like 3 games, doesn't care, and these Sixers say, okay, stay home. We don't want you
Yeah.
on the floor. And that would be the right response if this is how the situation plays out. So I think as much as like we're concerned about what James Harden is bringing in the building, the Sixers very much have a microscope on this center, making sure that you are not letting the bad vibes of James Harden seep into this organization if that's what he's trying to do. So I think that's really the storyline of today is they want to find out what his true intentions are. Are you trying to play yourself into a contract? Are you trying to play your value up to get traded? Or are you just here to cause a scene and make us trade you? All those things are very important. I ultimately think the Sixers are going to really limit how much he's around this actual team on a game day basis. So I'm taking the under with that. I hope I'm right. I would love to never see him on the court again, and I hope a trade just gets done. That's kind of where I'm at this point. And as I mentioned, I'm in on this team as a whole, so I kind of just want to wipe my hands and things move on. But we will see. That is definitely an interesting one, and probably that line specifically for games plays will dictate like the direction of the franchise more than anything we've mentioned.
And the weird thing is, I unfortunately feel like it's either going to be like 5 games or like 25 games. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like it's
or
either
40.
it's not going to be this like in between where it's like, okay, we just got in and we got rid of him. I do wonder. I mean, this is something we can completely talk about another time, but I do wonder if they'll be okay with not having an addition, like a next step. If even if they got the second first round pick from LA, do you think that they're okay moving forward, not knowing where those picks are going? Because those are not staying in house. Like they're not going to make those picks, right?
No. The short answer is no. You're correct on that. That the picks are to be flipped for something. And the Terrence Mann boiling point or the sticking point in this deal, my understanding is that the Sixers have another trade for Terrence Mann already lined up. The deal is Daryl Morey wants 3 first-round picks for James Harden. So he wants 2 directly from the Clippers in this deal, and then 1 for wherever Terrence Mann will eventually be traded. But that's what he wants to add to his shelves of assets. So yes, you're correct in the fact that like these picks, and I will say like picks are much more valuable in theory than they are once they're made. Like people love to just have picks to have picks. Like there's a real chance none of these picks turn out to be like anything. Like that just kind of happens sometimes. So I do think you're right that like there's little regard for, I guess, I don't know. They're there to be flipped for sure.
So like in your eyes, if the second the Clippers open up that second first round pick, or the second that they do the 2 first and Terrence Mann, if they were to do that tomorrow, that deal gets done, and there still could be a chance that they don't make another move until the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think that's all accurate. I think I think Morey has made it very clear to the Clippers what his bar is for a James Harden trade, and I do believe it's eventually returning 3 first round picks. if they are willing to reach that number, then a deal gets done. I think if they, as much as there's all the posturing and pause trade talks and stuff, the Clippers call tomorrow and match that offer for Daryl Morey, James Harden will be wearing a Clippers jersey tomorrow night. I do think it's as simple as that. But I do get the Clippers perspective of we're not bidding against ourselves here. We have zero reason to up our offer when you have zero other offers that we're competing with. Like, I get that as well. So I do think that's the point. But I think Morey has told his price point, and until the Clippers reach that, he's not going to do anything.
Fair.
All right, so two questions here. Number one, what Sixers addition will make the biggest impact this year? A new Sixer this season.
Kelly Oubre.
Okay,
Kelly Oubre is gonna be. Kelly Oubre is the first wing that we've had off the bench that's like can legitimately play basketball. I think that he is gonna have bad nights. There's gonna be nights where he's like not good,
for sure.
But I think in general, what we're gonna feel from him this year is like he was very solid for the minutes he's playing and for his contract. I think that he's gonna be a very solid net plus for this team this year.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer. For me, it comes down to Pat Beverly and Kelly Oubre. I'll answer Pat Beverly here for the sake of being different. Feed me as much Pat Bev as we can possibly get. And as we talk about this uncertainty with James Harden and at the guard position specifically, that is a guy who's going to see his minutes increase while James Harden is not there. And just feed me the Pat Bev minutes, man. The sound bites, the quotes, the highlights, the flagrants, the technical fouls, everything that comes with it. I'm excited for. Yeah, all the theatrics, bring them all. So I'm very thrilled for what Pat Bev brings to this team. At least he's a guy who I 100% can count on to bring it every second he's on the floor. That's infectious, and this is a team that needs to see that more. So I do really believe like he is going to elevate this team. He told a story on the podcast today. He did a very funny Joel Embiid impression in it, but he told a story of like him making Embiid do extra conditioning with him to end practice the past 2 days. And like little things like that stack up and matter. Like in the grand scheme of things, does Joel Embiid doing fitness one day after training camp matter? Probably not. But when you do that every day or when you build these habits, those things are crucial to building leadership, to building positive habits and winning habits within an organization. I'm happy to see Pat Bev doing all those things. I'm happy that he is in Philadelphia. And I do believe that he's looking at guys like Jaden Springer, that he's kind of showing the ropes. I think Tyrese Maxey, he's going to be a very positive influence of. So as much as it might not be directly in a box score in the same way, I do think Pat Bev is the biggest addition the Sixers have made this offseason.
Yeah, I was in my head, there was those two. And initially I was like, if you're talking on court for the team playing in a game every single night, my answer is Kelly Oubre. If you're talking about culture, fit, who he is as a leader, just who he is and what he brings, Pat Bev is my pick. But both of them have been like abundantly positive, and their 100%. Their conferences, their scrums have all been like really positive and encouraging. And I've been like, I've really been impressed by the two of them. Kelly Oubre, I don't know if I knew his personality really much at all, but I like the guy. I think he's going to be really solid for us this year.
And the thing I want to point out real quick on Kelly before I hit you with the next one is he seems very bought into the construct. He's never played for a winning team, and the critics of him will point out that that is a correlation there, that's no coincidence. He seems very bought in on like, I want to be playing for a contender, that I want to be participating and competing at the highest level. And he had a really cool quote about the Sixers. I'm pulling up right now that just gave me like let's cleanse the palate. Let's give this guy a fair chance. And he said this at his media day. What it is quote, this team wins every year, right? The fan base wants them to win more. But I come from teams where they have no hope, like zero hope within the whole city. And that's not this at all. So I appreciate the fan base for being hard on the team. That's cool to have that kind of outlook coming in. And it is a different situation when you're playing in the pressure cooker of a city like Philadelphia versus a city like Charlotte, who doesn't really care about their basketball team and is a team that hasn't been in the playoff in like a decade at this point. So I'm kind of giving Kelly the benefit of the doubt for some of the losing habits that he's absolutely had in his past. And I am approaching it with a clean slate, that if he's bought in and wants to contribute to a winning, you have to make sacrifices in the way you play, but he's capable of doing that. And he's a far more talented player than a lot of these guys that the Sixers have had in this role. I think the best like comparison is compare him to like a Matisse Thybulle or a Jalen McDaniels. And there's zero doubt Kelly Oubre is a significantly better basketball than either one of those. Now, can he fill a similar role and buy in the winning way? That's still to be determined. but I am excited about like the top end, what he can bring to this team.
I agree.
All right, and next question I want to hit you with. We got 2 more, and then we're wrapping up here. What's the loss this offseason that they will miss the most? Which player that has walked out of the franchise will the Sixers miss the most?
Did you see the media day picture of Niang?
Yeah, I was
Just
actually
like
pulling it up right now.
George, just because I love the guy. Honestly, now that the roster is complete, like I'm totally fine with the way that this offseason played out for them. Obviously, minus the Harden stuff, but George, I think just because I enjoyed his presence and he was a shooter, he was a guy that would get on people and he was a shit talker and did all those things, so he was fun to have around. So I'll say George.
Yeah, I'm struggling to find that picture right now, but there is a quite chunky looking photo of George Niang floating around from the Cavs media day. I think it is probably George. I could make an argument for Shake Milton. I'm still rocking with George for this. I'm
Yeah, I
still
like
not
Shake.
sold. Yeah, I like Shake, and I think he's going to do good things up in Minnesota. So hats off to him, rooting for the best for sure. George, I do think the Sixers, there will be a point in time where they miss his shooting. Like it goes under
Yeah.
the radar, like how elite of a shooter this guy truly is. And he's going to help
Yeah.
the Cavs in a major way because that was their biggest downfall last year is they did not have enough floor spacing against that around that jumbo lineup. They added Max Strus and Georges Niang. It's a great move for them. So I'm happy. I think he will have a great year for them and caught himself a decent chunk of change in the process. So shout out to Georges Niang as well. And we will wrap things up here, James. What is your official prediction? I know there is plenty to still happen, but how does the Sixers season end this year?
Oh, how does it end?
Yes.
I wonder, now that I'm thinking about it, we've probably done this, what now, 3 times, at least 4 times?
Yeah, I think 4.
4 times. Well, we started in the middle
That's
of
true.
one of let's not think about it. Anyway, um, I probably I wonder what I said the last couple of times around. I
I,
wonder
I
how
think you
confident I was.
think you've had at least one championship prediction on the table.
100%. I was
Yeah.
gonna say I probably said it every year. What do you want from me, you know?
Fair.
Um, does it make it better to say that, they're gonna lose in the Eastern Conference Finals? Does that make it feel better?
That was my prediction. If that makes you feel better.
Okay, sure. We'll go with that then because I don't know, man. God knows. We have no clue. And I don't want to say that I'm confident that they're going to win the championship. They've given me no reason to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But why not?
Yeah. I do think that they win or they go to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm gonna give them
That's
a
a
lose.
win.
That is, and I think that's enough to just hook everybody back in a little bit. That even
Well,
with
that
all this
cap space
uncertainty,
coming up too, baby.
yeah, Cavs base coming up, and that's topic for another day. But Klay Thompson piquing my interest a little bit there. But to wrap
Old.
it up here, I do agree that I think that they find a way to get past that second round barrier this year, just enough to kind of lure everyone back into keep Joel Embiid happy, for Tyrese Maxey to take a step forward, and just if we flash forward to this point next season, I think the vibes are significantly higher regarding the 76ers. So they have a lot
Let's
of
go.
work to do to regain some trust. This is going to be a very interesting season. There is a lot still to be determined. The James Harden thing hangs over it. But that is my official prediction that I think somehow, miraculously, they find a way to get it done in a way they have not before and get past that second round hurdle. So any final thoughts on the season before we kick things off? This will be the final podcast before actual basketball starts.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Yeah, I think something we've kind of been talking about for the last couple of weeks, maybe it's been building. But I genuinely have felt like this is going to be a good year. It's going to be a year that has obviously ups and downs like they all have. But this one, I think there's a significant difference one way or another. The system, the coaching, the players that are being empowered to play. There is a significant change, not only in the players on the floor and the product, the culture has changed. Things have there's a palpable difference in the way they're going about things right now. And I love that. And I hope that it translates to good basketball. I hope that it translates to them playing a good style of team basketball that's fun and modern and defensive heavy. And they're going to play a style of basketball that I think we're going to enjoy watching. And I don't know if I can really say that that has been the case at all times over the last couple of years. So I'm excited for it. And I hope that other people are as excited as I am because I hate trying to feel like I'm the only one or one of the only one that is
Excited.
ready for this season to start. I know you share that feeling now, but it took you a little bit to come around.
It did. It definitely did. But yeah,
I don't
I am
blame anybody
backing.
for that either.
Yeah, for sure. And there's plenty of people who are still not in, and I think it'll take some time, and I get that as well. But
Yeah.
I'm excited for the season. I appreciate all you guys for tuning into this episode. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, give me your season prediction in the comments for this episode. Make sure to stay posted. I will be live immediately after the Sixers versus Bucks game tomorrow. You can check that out on this channel as well as Edge of Philly Sports. Be breaking things down with Tiago and Dives over there. Also, we'll be rolling out a new show called Picks and Roll on Fox Sports The Gambler with Sean Brace. So we'll be talking some Sixers directly on there, as well as some other NBA topics as well. So stay posted for all of that. Got plenty coming out. We will be with you start to finish this season. So stay posted, buckle up. I'll be along for the wild ride as well.